What's up, finger guns? Welcome to this latest video in my author notes playlist, which just grows and grows and grows. I'm going to do an experiment starting today through all of August in a push to just be what I can be to help you all to bring some light to your life, some joy, and some hopefully some really good content. I want to tell a few stories as I do videos that kind of dive deep into certain aspects of writing. I'm not going to get into technique or anything like that. I'm going to get into, I don't know, principles and ideas and stuff, and just try to unpack some things that have been burning through my brain and that I'm really grasping. So I want to talk about today learning to tell a story. And it's not like learning to type your story with the right outline and the right plot and all that stuff, although that is part of it, but learning to tell the story. So I just finished, I stayed up till 4 in the morning, Thursday or Friday night. I forget, it was Friday night last week, finishing a big revision, and in many cases a big rewrite and a big chunky removal and adding of things to the current memoir that's called I'm Telling the Story. That was not the original title of the book. The book went through a lot of different titles, and it actually had a title that was "Hey Kid, There's Nothing Wrong with You," which is a line from a big country song that stuck around for some time. I came up with that line because that line struck me with deep emotional force. I kid you not, in 2015, when I was driving in a car, we just moved up to Seattle, and we were playing some big country on the rental car that was provided to us while we were waiting for our cars to arrive. And we had our big country album on with that song. It's called Lullaby. And "Hey Kid, There's Nothing Wrong with You" comes on. There's nothing wrong. And it's like, oh. And it was such a good, important experience for me to start really digging into this notion is there nothing wrong with me? And I was trying to conceive my whole memoir at the time, and this was a while ago, as you know. I just said 2015, right? And I only really burned out my memoir in 2017 to 2018 or 2019, I forget exactly. So a little while ago, right, that I really just blurfed it out after a lot of outlining and some personal writing, and some just a lot of stuff. So what's interesting is that this is a memoir. We know what a memoir is, right? It's an autobiography. It's telling about me. It's telling about my life. And you know by now, I was in a cult from birth until 17. I was born and raised for the first part of my raising, the first phase of my raising, you could say, first major phase, until I was 17. Got out through luck and some conniving on my part, and so on and so on. So I mean, go watch my podcast if you or watch my listen. Do you smell something? Anyway, go listen to my podcast. My podcast isn't in video form. It's called Tales from a Cult Insider. Anyway, if you know the reference for "listen, do you smell something," put it in the comments below. Alrighty, woo, boy, my videos are just rambling. So you'd think that a memoir, an autobiography, would be just a breeze to write, right? You just tell everything that happened to you. Talk about what happened to you. But it's been the hardest thing I've ever written. It's not just because I'm so close to it, although that's a huge part of it. But really, when you're writing something, be it fiction or nonfiction, you have to give yourself permission to figure out what story you're trying to tell. Because we don't always know what story we're trying to tell when we decide we're going to write something, some story. When we have a piece of dialogue that just sparks and says, oh, I can write something on that. Or we have an image that shows up with fantasy or magic or a romantic image or an action image or something like that shows up and say, oh, I think I can write something on that one. And I wrote Beat, my book on here, which is now under my pen name, Jerry Ironspear. I came up with that idea when I was running in the winter, because I was training for a 5K, and my chest hurt like the dickens because the air was so cold. I was like, can you die if your heart's going too hard or if your chest hurts too much? And I came up with this idea that about a biotoxin that killed most of humanity 100 years before in this book, and the story unfolds as a young man tries to convince everybody around him that they're being lied to about the ongoing existence of this biotoxin. Turns out he's wrong and right. In any case, that all was conceived as I was running. It's cool to see where ideas spark from, but that doesn't mean I know the story I want to tell right when I start telling the story. The first draft is often a discovery process. And I'm not saying artsy fartsy, oh, get in touch with your muse thing, although that can be a big part of it for a lot of people. And in the case of my memoir, it absolutely has been a kind of a real exploration, a real discovery process. But for my fiction, be it my fantasy science fiction or my action adventure or my contemporary fiction, I really start discovering the story more as I write the story, right? I can have an idea for what needs to happen. I start outlining and making notes about what's going on in my head, and that sparks more ideas and more threads, which is great. But I don't know is the moment I sit down to start writing. I don't know the whole thing. I have a pretty good idea. I don't know the whole thing. And I just discover it as I go. And as I discover it, I codify it in these outlines and in chapter outlines and stuff like that, which is very useful. But I have to stay flexible as the story tends to evolve as I get to know the characters more and as I find what the characters need to be for themselves and for other characters and for the story to unfold in the way it needs to unfold in an authentic manner. This memoir has been such a test for me. It's been such a test for my patience, not because I'm getting pissed off at it or anything like that, but because I want to write something and be done with it and then produce it so it can be read by others. But I've had to figure out what story I'm trying to tell. Yeah, it's my story. But Jared, I know that. I know it's my story. It's your story, dude. Just tell it. But I mean, have you ever told a story in different ways to people about your own life? I don't know, the first time you rode a bike, you tell that story in the exact same way with the exact same words, the exact same approach and punchline or culminating thing or rise of action or whatever every time? Probably not. I mean, Joseph Smith, right? The guy who saw God in Jesus Christ and all that stuff. His story varied a ton as he told it, right? Stories we have to be open to our story coming clearer to us as we tell it. To our brain being able to make the connections that we need to make it. And so when I first wrote this book, this memoir, it was really more a series of personal essays that were connected. There was a lot of contextualizing at the beginning, and then I told a linear story as I went. But first there was a lot of contextualizing, so there was a fair amount of time hopping throughout to try to get locations and things like that put together. And then I could tell some thematically connected things, but the theme wasn't that strong until I really settled on this idea of, hey kid, there's nothing wrong with you. And I wrote the memoir with that in mind, with chapters needing to focus on unfolding, this feeling that there was something wrong with me and how there really wasn't something wrong with me, and what went into me trying to figure out and really firm up the notion in my own heart and soul that there was nothing wrong with me. And that was good. It was a good exercise, and I wrote that memoir and it got done. It was good. I was happy with it. But I wasn't satisfied with it. I was happy to have learned that way to tell my story, but I wasn't satisfied with it. I queried with it, and I didn't feel as confident as I should have, and it showed. I didn't get any nibbles. It's not only because it wasn't as good as it could be. It's also because publishing professionals are supremely risk averse, right? They have to have a lot of confidence or a lot of passion for a project before they're going to take you on, and so. Anyway, we'll get into that maybe in another video. I don't want to depress you right now. So later, I realized that as I was figuring out, my messages for when I do my public speaking, which isn't enough, I'd like to do more. Boy, let me know if you need me to come and talk to you. I realized that I want people to know there's nothing wrong with them, but what I really talk about and what's been important to me and made a difference to me was, and has been and continues to be, having stories utterly saved my life. Having what I read become an aspirational thing for me. These heroes, be they female or male, saying, I want to be like that one. I want to be like that lady. I want to be like that dude. I want to fight for what I love. I want to fight for whom I love. I want to never give up. I want to be willing to sacrifice whatever it takes in order to achieve this goal. I found that aspirational in these heroic stories that I was reading. Be they fantasy, science fiction, romance stories, be they comics, whatever, So I realized that I needed my memoir to be telling a different story, a story about stories, a story about the power that stories have been to me. And so I started rewriting a few chapters here and there, and it was getting somewhere. And this is me still trying to tell myself the story that I was trying to get at with this memoir, right? And I was struggling with the first chapter because it was kind of all over the place. So I read a bunch more memoirs, or a few more memoirs, and I realized that the chapter was actually a prologue in the first chapter, and it was great once I did that. Wow, it helped a ton. But then I realized I really did need to just say, this is about story. And I need to talk about how stories are at the heart of all of this. And so I did. I started doing that. And I rewrote the whole memoir with more of a focus on that story. And it's not like it was less true. It's not like I made stuff up to shoehorn into the story thing. It's just that I found different ways to say things that told that story, and it felt a little truer to me. It felt like it was more authentic to the story I was trying to get at in this thing. And as I finished that second major write of the book, I finally came up with the title, I'm Telling This Story. And how nuanced and detailed that title can be. Hey, I'm telling this story. I'm telling this story. It's as obvious on its face as it could possibly be, right? But have you ever heard somebody say, hey, I'm telling this story, or I'm telling this story? Not you. I'm throwing some elbows here saying, I'm telling this story with that title. I'm telling it now because it's time for people to hear the story from me about, being born and raised in a terrible cult, because they have been controlling the narrative for a long time. And I'm not seeing them as antagonists, but it's time for this story to be told. So I'm telling this story now. And I love the title. Like, it feels inspired practically, right? And because I had that title, I had to do another rewrite. And so I did another revision. And that's when I queried 150 agents, and it didn't go well. I got my very first ever full request ever from all my books, except for one time a lady requested my book and then she left agenting. So I don't really count that anymore. I think she was already on her way out. She's a great lady. Jude, if you watch my videos, hey, what's up? I hope you're doing great. So as I finished that rewrite and had settled on my title, I realized I was telling this story in the way that I wanted to, telling a story that felt right, felt truer to what I was trying to get at this whole time. But a couple chapters felt out of place, and they just felt like they weren't sticking to that as well as they ought to, and I was maybe trying a little too hard to fit them into this thing. And they were actually some of the more spiritual chapters. And I'm a super religious dude. I know Jesus Christ is my Savior, right? Among many other things. And so about, 3 or 4 months ago, I had this realization as I read in some older scripture, that I need to write another memoir, a different memoir. So I have another one that I'm working on, and it's the much more spiritual one. It's a memoir of my own restoration. So anyway, so that meant that I was free to take out the very important things about my own spiritual journey, especially very religious flavored things, and set those in this other memoir. Not because I'm trying to hide it, but because they didn't help me tell the story I was trying to tell with I'm telling this story. And that freed me up a little more. And that seemed to open up a few big floodgates. And I found really neat ways as I reread and tried to do a bit of wordsmithing of making my memoir a real reflection of stories and the power of stories in my life. So without having to do a ton of, although I was ready for it, and I did have to do a bit of surgery here and there, I didn't have to be really invasive on every chapter when it came to this. I renamed every chapter. I didn't have to reorder very much. I'm open to it, but I haven't seen that I need to right now. It's really in the right linear order as far as I can tell. I'm going to double check on that, of course, but I renamed all the chapters, and all the chapters are named after some literature. So there's one that's ditched at birth instead of switched at birth, right? And then there's one that's Are You My Father? There's a book called Are You My Mother? Are You My Father? There's one called Band of Brothers. Great program, right? But it's Band of Brothers with a question mark. There's, the book A Confederacy of Dunces? I have a chapter called A Confederacy of Dysfunction, and so on and so on. And it feels so true to what I'm trying to do now. It's not more fictional. It's not me making crap up to make it, more polished. It just feels truer to the true story I'm trying to tell. And I love that. I have loved this process of learning to tell this particular story to myself really well. And by doing that, opening it up a little brighter and a little clearer to myself so that I can make it clear to others. Friends, if you want to tell someone a story, and have them have a good experience in consuming that story, be it them hearing it, reading it, whatever. You have to know the story first. And you have to be free and make yourself intentionally free to frick around, to play around and understand and figure out what's the best way to tell that story to yourself so that you can then tell it to other people. So I can't emphasize this enough. I don't have better words than make sure you're open to finding new ways of understanding the story you're trying to tell if you're a writer or if you're something else even. If you're a learning experience designer like I was for such a long time. Figure out for sure what story you're trying to tell, what you're trying to accomplish. And once you've got that done, and once you've been open enough to being able to change whatever you need to in favor of the story being as true as possible, as meaningful as possible, and meeting the objectives you're trying to meet, then figure out the right way to tell it to others. So now that I know that story, like it's in there, right? Now I'm going to do edits, and I'm going to make sure that I tell that story that I have learned finally in the way that it needs to be told for others to be able to read it. I'm excited. I hope this has been helpful for you. I mean, I don't want to just talk in esoteric terms. I hope this has been of some actual service to you, or if nothing else, interesting to you. And if it has been, I hope that you'll subscribe. I hope you'll share with your friends about this kind of eclectic, interesting YouTube channel that's all with also 5 currently free audiobooks. Well, there will be a couple more soon. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for sticking with it and staying with me and your loyalty here. Again, please do subscribe if you haven't yet, and let others know. And I'll talk to you again. You'll see another video from me tomorrow. Bye.